Hello and welcome to this edition of Capitol Dateline Online. I'm Brad Swanson, your host, broadcasting 2 blocks from the Capitol. We're here with Jim Saunders, executive editor of the News Service of Florida. Jim, I'm not going to even ask what's going on. We know what's going on. The presidential election, let's start there. Campaigns are afoot not only in this state, but it's kind of home base. What are both campaigns doing right now?
Well, I think it's really close in Florida. I think that evidenced by the amount of attention Florida's getting at this point. Tim Kaine, the Democratic vice presidential nominee, was in Tallahassee last week. He made an interesting comment that if the Democrats can win Florida in the presidential race, it's essentially a checkmate on Donald Trump. That's what they're hoping, is that they can, if they win Florida, that will basically lock out any ability of Trump to win. Because of the 29 electoral votes, one of the largest amounts in the country, and it is really the largest swing state. But both campaigns are just pouring people and resources into the state at this point. Advertising, also visits by the candidates and their surrogates. Hillary Clinton was in South Florida over the weekend. Mike Pence, today Monday, Mike Pence is in Central Florida, going from Brevard County, Seminole County, Pinellas County. Hillary Clinton's coming back on Tuesday. Bill Clinton's going to be here. Joe Biden's going to be here. Barack Obama's going to be here. Word is that Trump's coming back. So, it's they're shuttling in and out of here, trying to lock down the state on both sides at this point.
Right. The airports are kind of, this is the hub, because from Florida they deploy to these other states that are potentially in play, but yet they all seem to be coming back to Florida.
They're in other states too. They're in, Nevada.
Come on, no, they're in Florida. Florida's the hub, and all centers around
They definitely are. But there are a handful of few states. If you're in Nebraska right now, you're not seeing their planes much.
Right.
But if you're in one of these handful of swing states, they are coming in and out, and Florida's definitely part of that, a big part of that.
Well, let's talk about who they're going after, because it really comes down to both millennials, the black vote, the female vote. Let's start with millennials. What's going on there? What are you hearing?
Well, I think it's pretty well known that there are certain groups that Hillary Clinton has to do well with. Trump is doing well, has done well with older white voters. That's sort of, start with that baseline. Mm-hmm. A lot of millennials were Bernie Sanders fans. They were very skeptical about Hillary Clinton. And so the issue is whether she's going to be able to turn them out. There are efforts going on in college campuses to shuttle students to early voting locations. So they are trying to do everything they can to get that millennial, that young voters out, because they know they need that group in big numbers. Right. Another group that Hillary Clinton needs a lot is a large turnout from African American voters, and there's been some indication that the African American voters have not turned out in the same numbers that they did in 2012. Again, all this is preliminary, though. There was a big push over the weekend for the Souls to Polls effort, which is something that's become pretty common with early voting, for black churches to organize their members to go to early voting locations. So that's one strategy. I think we'll see that again next weekend in those counties that still have early voting at that point. Hispanics are another big group. I saw some numbers today that indicated that maybe the early voting among Hispanic voters is larger than it has been in the past, which you would think would help Clinton, because she does have a large lead in the polls among Hispanic voters.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the election. So we do have early voting in this state. We got a lot of absentee ballots that have already come in. So the email FBI letter that happened late last Friday, that carried through the weekend. Typically that doesn't happen. News dumps on the weekend don't carry through. This one is still front and center on Monday morning. So how much does a data dump like that, or an issue like that that's come up, affect the electorate after so many people have already voted? Is it so tight that it's still anybody's game?
Well, it's a little bit hard to tell at this point, because there's, the polls numbers that we are seeing even today were polls taken before this this announcement that the FBI was going to be looking at these additional emails. So it's a little bit hard to tell, but there are almost 4 million Floridians, or some millions of Floridians, who've already cast ballots in early voting, and they call now vote by mail, but it's absentee ballots, basically. So there's a whole lot of people who'd already voted before this revelation came out. You know, the polls they're kind of all over the place, but if you really look at them, it's clearly a close race in Florida.
Right.
So if this if this FBI disclosure hurts Hillary Clinton and it swings even, you know, a small fraction of votes, it could make a difference.
Right.
And so I think we're not really sure at this point because everything is still sort of in motion. Democrats are trying to do everything they can to fight back against it, but Donald Trump's reveling in this.
Right.
I mean, it is allowing him to tee off on the issues that he's been teeing off on for months.
Right.
It's
a brand new game almost
crooked
on
Hillary,
the same issues.
Crooked
right.
Hillary, the system's rigged, all this stuff that he has been talking about. This just fuels all that. So if there's any voters out there who are still on the on the fence about this
right.
race, you know, it could allow him to try to influence, or you know, their campaign to try to influence those voters. One other possibility is that if there's somebody on the fence, they may just really throw up their hands at this point and say, both these candidates are unacceptable, I'm not voting, which could hurt Clinton in that sense. So
well, let's talk about some of the folks, whether or not you're voting for the presidential election, which for the first time, I mean, you see more and more people saying, I don't even know if I'm going to vote in that. But you typically hear, I'm still going to the ballot, I'm going to vote for everybody beneath the top of the ticket. So let's talk about a few of those races. Why don't we start down in Miami? You got one race with Representative Cabrillo against Joe Garcia. What's happening there?
There's really only a few really hot congressional races on the ballot. A lot of them were decided in the primaries, but in Miami, maybe the biggest congressional race in the state. The incumbent Congressman Carlos Curbelo, Republican, is trying to defend his seat against Joe Garcia, who's a former congressman in that area, who's a Democrat. That district was redrawn as part of the court-ordered redistricting that's influenced a lot of races across the state. And it's a big race. There's both parties, or national parties, are involved in there. Paul Ryan, the House Speaker, was down there a couple weeks ago, I believe, to help Curbelo, which indicates that they are, you know, really trying to bolster him up and to win that seat. I think one of the broader issue rather than just on that seat, but I think there's a lot of question about Hispanic voters with Trump at the top of the ticket, whether they will go against Republicans. And Curbelo has done a lot to try to distance himself all along through this campaign from Trump, because I think he recognizes the danger of being attached too closely to Trump.
Well, I think that Hispanic voter down there is definitely going to make a difference because, number one, in that race, it's two Hispanics against each other, whereas you have some other races where that's not the case. But if we travel northward up to Tampa Bay, we've got Governor Christ, former Governor Christ, running against Congressman Jolly. Now that race has gotten close because of some recent mail and some commercials. What's happening there?
Well, Trump actually has become a big part of that race as well. I mean, Jolly's done everything he can to try to distance himself from Trump, because that is a district that President Obama carried pretty handily in 2012, which indicates that it would lean Democratic. Jolly has tried to distance himself from Trump all along through that campaign. And he also has taken some positions that have distanced himself from the national Republican leaders. But the National Democrats put out an ad, as you alluded to, that essentially showed Jolly and Trump as being friends or whatever. But it was a cutout ad. It was not a legitimate ad. Charlie Crist called for it to be pulled down.
The day it was supposed to come down.
But, you know, who knows what, if any damage. If nothing else, it got news coverage that this ad was out there.
Right.
Both of them have tried to distance themselves from Trump. Jolly, interestingly, has dredged up some old comments that Charlie Crist made about Trump years ago when Charlie Crist was probably a Republican. I don't know when it was.
Right.
But You know, it goes back and forth. I mean, you can't even make up some of this stuff during this election cycle. I mean, Anthony Weiner may influence the presidential election. I mean, it's just hard to fathom some of this stuff.
I can't even bring that one in. So let's go over to a race that was a bit unexpected. We've got Congressman Micah being challenged by Stephanie Murphy, and that should have been what would have been a lopsided victory. But Stephanie Murphy is really competing in that district. How's that working out?
Well, John Micah has been in Congress, I believe, since 1992. He was elected the first time. He's one of the longest-serving Florida Congress members. He's been influential. At one time, he was the chairman of the House Transportation Committee. He's also been sort of a fixture in, he's based in Seminole County. His district has varied over the years. He's sort of been a fixture there. But the Democrats went after him this year with Stephanie Murphy. They put a lot of money into her. She is a first-time candidate, I believe. They've really taken a run at him. The district, while it does have Seminole County, which has been a pretty traditionally stable Republican suburban county, it also includes a large chunk of Orange County now. Again, going back to redistricting, the redistricting is having various ripple effects, and the district includes a chunk of Orange County, which I think is more Democratic leaning. And the Democrats have taken a run at Micah. Now, I think time will tell whether that will be successful, but they are clearly hoping that they can pick up some ground in Central Florida.
Well, I tell you what, if nothing else, this has been exciting. I know you and I are both ready for next week to be the final day of this election season, but I can guarantee both you and the folks that are watching this program, something's going to pop every day between now and then. Jim, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for this program of Capital Dateline Online. For more news, views, and opinions, go to our website at Capital Dateline Online or check us out on our Facebook page. Thanks for tuning in.